Hello, my name is Creed and welcome to Writer's Blockbuster. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 1981 psychological space horror Galaxy of Terror. This movie is surprisingly dark, setting up a whole universe and forcing our characters to go against the things that they fear most. It has incredibly cool set pieces, and the entire story is both intriguing and heartbreaking. It is another Roger Corman production and holds the directorial debut of film director James Cameron himself. So prepare for a hyperspace jump and try to control your emotions as we talk about what happens in Galaxy of Terror. Also, there will be spoilers in this breakdown, so you've been warned. And if you enjoy videos like this, then consider subscribing, because great and unknown film is what this channel is all about. We open on a desolate planet. A man runs through his ship afraid of an unknown enemy. He seals the door, but finds his dead crewmates all around him. In the reflection, we see something rise and begin to throw the man around, and then we cut away. On the planet Xerxes, we meet Mitri, who is an interpreter of signs, as well as the Master of Xerxes, just called the Master. A commander calls telling the Master that there was an incident of some kind on a planet called Morganthus, and the Master seems oddly intrigued. He says that he wants to begin executing a plan, which Mitri warns against.
Such risk.
It has been too long. I'm tired of waiting.
Death will surround you.
The Master calls the commander back, informing him to put together a crew which he will handpick himself. We see the commander, a man named Commander Ilvar, on the ship as the rest of the crew arrive. In walks Captain Trantor, who is very forward and quite pushy.
Lift off in 30 seconds, and mark!
But Captain, no one's prepared!
They've got 30 seconds to get prepared.
As the crew prepared to take off, we meet Balon, the second in command, Cabron, the experienced veteran who has past experience with Balon, but we'll learn more about that later, Aluma, the empath, and as an empath myself, I know that that means that she's very sensitive to the subtle energies of the universe. Kor, the cook, Damia, the tech, Ranger, the secondary tech, and expert in dreams, but not really the dreams part. He's Freddy Krueger. Quhad, the specialist, and Kaz, the rookie. The ship takes off, and after a few checks, we learn that everyone made it through the launch safely. The commander and captain share some small talk before the commander brings up an incident that Trantor was part of called the Hesperus.
Hesperus. Yes. Everyone's forgotten now.
Trantor puts in the coordinates for a hyperspace jump immediately, and the ship makes it to Morganthus. As they enter the atmosphere, the autopilot disengages, forcing Trantor to take manual control. She says that there isn't much that she can do, but for some reason the ship falls slower than she expected, allowing the captain to land the ship safely on the surface. The crew exit, their mission being to investigate a ship that mysteriously went dark a few kilos away. Aluma doesn't sense any energies, and Quhad does this hand signal thingy. We'll see this command pop up every once in a while. It's just a sign of camaraderie among the crew. This is also the first time that we see Quhad's signature weapons, the crystals. As they enter the ship, a body falls from the ceiling, but Quhad makes sure that it's dead before Balon vaporizes the corpse. Balon gives commands for the group to split up and search the ship. Quhad and Cabron find more corpses, but there doesn't seem to be any survivors on board. Kaz is set out alone to search, and we see glimpses of an odd creature watching him from the corners and crawl spaces. Kaz flees, running directly into Balon, but he's too afraid to report anything. The crew reconvene, and Aluma mentions that she feels something weird coming from Kaz. As the crew exit the ship, Kaz lags behind, thinking that he heard something. Once he lets his guard down, the creature grabs him from behind, wrapping its limbs around him before biting down on his head. Back on our ship, Damia and Ranger do an autopsy on Kaz, but find nothing unusual about his death. Aluma mentions that once Kaz died, she felt another presence suddenly disappear, but they don't know what to make of that information. Balon wants to call the mission complete, but the commander knows that there are still 4 unaccounted missing crew somewhere on this planet. They do a scan and find a coordinate that is interfering with their machines, and the commander decides that that's the next point to investigate. After a short hike, we see the cause of the interference, a dark pyramid which Illuma says feels odd and dead, and the density scan shows that the interior is hollow. As they scale the pyramid, the commander begins to feel his age.
I'm getting old. I'm tired. I'm tired of giving orders, and I much prefer home.
Halfway up, they find a large chute that descends into the pyramid. The commander feels drawn to the chute and decides to take a look.
Doubt. His brother demon to despair. The demon's tail doubt withers those who dare not dare.
He repels inside, ordering Cabron and Damia to cover him. He sees holes on the inside of the walls, and suddenly a tentacle shoots out and latches to his chest. He's able to cut it off, but then more shoot out, grabbing his torso and face. Cabron suddenly feels the line go slack and looks down to see the commander gone. He repels down, but there's no sign of where the old man could be. At the top of the pyramid, they find another corpse, but Balon vaporizes it before we get a chance to see it. A large stone door is opening, and Quhad thinks fast and uses his crystals to keep the doors closed. Damia and Cabron meet the others up top and tell them that the commander is likely dead. And Damia mentions that they found wormholes inside of the chute and that she hates worms. After a few seconds, the crystals break and crumble into shards, which has a devastating effect on Quhad.
I live and I die by the crystals.
Quhad is directed to stay behind and guard the entrance while the others go inside. As they enter, Illuma gets queasy, mentioning that she's always been a little claustrophobic. She starts feeling that strange presence again, but can't feel exactly where it is. Damia decides to head back and check on Quhad, just in case the presence was going after him. Quhad sees that the doors are closing, and does his best to keep them open, but ultimately fails. Miraculously, he sees the crystals rematerialize and is overwhelmingly happy. However, as he's reaching down, a crystal lodges into his forearm and begins to cut through his skin. He's got no choice but to cut off his own arm, but when he looks down, he sees his detached arm move and grab a crystal before throwing it and embedding it into his chest, killing the crystal-loving specialist.
Nice shot!
Damia finds Quhad dead and vaporizes his corpse, but freaks out when she sees worms crawling all over his detached arm. This scene specifically is credited for James Cameron himself. He was hired as the art director on this film, but noticed that the crew shot too few scenes in general. He offered to be the second director on the film so that he could shoot more scenes, and his request was honored, a request that has led to his career as one of the greatest directors of all time. We see one of the worms begin to grow, and when Damia turns around, it attacks and kills her. On the ship, Ranger speaks with Kor and mentions that he can't find the captain anywhere. They see the ship's controls have been overridden before realizing that the ship cannons are firing at something. When they go to investigate, Kor karate chops Ranger and knocks him out cold. The cook then goes to the weapons room and sees Tranton firing the cannons at an empty sky. From her perspective, it seems like there is an enemy ship in the sky. Kor tries to calm the captain down, telling her that what she's seeing is all in her head, but she refuses to believe him. She grabs a turret and runs for the ship exterior, but once she enters the airlock, she bursts into flame. The rest of the crew find Damia's body and vaporize it before heading back to the ship. They can't leave because none of them can fly the ship and because the unknown force is pulling them all towards the pyramid. Kor asks if he can join them once they return to the pyramid, and Ranger says that he'll join as well. Once back, Ranger warns Cabron about Kor, saying that someone knocked him out and that the cook was the only possible culprit. The way forward goes through a really tight tunnel, and Illuma doesn't want to enter.
Aren't you afraid?
Too scared to be.
As they enter, Illuma stops. She feels the walls and begins to get overwhelmed by the present that she's been feeling. But Ranger shows up a second later and pushes her through.
Nearly got me. Nearly got me.
Balon begins to hear something, but when he turns, there's nothing there, and we see his shadow morph behind his back. We see claws follow him from beneath the bridge as he walks. He's grabbed and trips, nearly pushing Ranger off the edge. They move forward, giving Balon a moment to gather himself.
Go ahead, I'll catch up.
As the others enter another chamber, the door closes and the lights go out on the exterior. The creature suddenly attacks Balon, but as he goes to shoot it, it seems to disappear right in front of his face. It continues to taunt him before appearing behind and throwing him off the bridge. Inside the next room is a triangular portal, and as the crew enter, they become separated. Ranger is suddenly grabbed from behind and finds that the attacker is himself. When he shoots, the other him doesn't react.
Blood, no guts. Can't be real.
As he realizes that the other him isn't real, it slowly disappears. Aluma sees Cabron, but it seems that the only way to get to him is by crawling through a tight tunnel. She begins to crawl through, but fleshy wires begin to wrap around her. She calls for help, but the wires get tighter and tighter before... Cabron finds Aluma's body a moment later. Ranger finds the grieving man and pulls him to his feet. They find a large chamber and decide to take a break.
It was my own fear that attacked me, brought to life somehow by this place.
Kor interrupts the two men, saying that things are only beginning, and revealing that he knows more than he let on. Cabron pursues the man alone, and finds him sitting in the center of a cave. Kor's head begins to glow, his disguise being lifted for a moment and revealing that he is the Master. Cabron confronts the man, realizing that he knew everything about this place and was complacent in watching as every one of the crewmates died. When he tries to shoot, the bullets do nothing.
I will find a way to kill you for what you've done.
Perhaps you will.
The Master then tells Cabron what this place is. It was a test, used to test man's greatest fear against them, and then he says that this is the place that Kor himself became a master. The lights go dark, and Cabron is placed against each of his crewmates' fears. He throws off the shadow monster, flips over the worm, and whacks the tentacles, doing sick moves and flips the entire time. As the light fades from red to blue, he sees the corpses of his crewmates all begin to encircle him. When he calls out, they don't answer, and he's forced to fight them off one by one. He's thrown to the ground, and as the dead crew close in on him, he hears Aluma's voice call out. The others disappear, and it's only Cabron and Aluma. She gets close before suddenly shifting and lifting Cabron off of his feet. He's able to kick her away and is forced to shoot and destroy her. The room goes back to normal, and Kor says that Cabron has mastered his emotions before light spreads from Kor into Cabron.
I've killed the Master.
No, only an old man.
Kor tells Cabron that he is now the Master. It will be his job to rule or allow the planet to fall into chaos. All the power of the universe is in his hands. Cabron pulls out his pistol and vaporizes the old man. His head suddenly begins to glow with the same red that we saw before, and that is where the movie ends. While this movie is incredibly fast-paced, it's also impressively comprehensive. It sets up the idea of a master within the first few minutes, and it's not until the end of the movie that we realize the entire story is actually about the master's creation. The idea of using the crewmates' fear against themselves is something that we've seen in some modern-day movies, but it's done very subtly at first in this, expanding on the idea as the story progresses and as they move deeper into the pyramid. By the time we as an audience understand what's going on, so do the remaining crew, showing us that they are intelligent and aware of the dangers that are being put in front of them. The imagery and sets in this are also super rad, showing larger-than-life rooms with eerily religious undertones. The ever-changing settings put the characters on edge and force us to divert our immediate expectations to be always morphing and adapting. It's movies like this that give me my love for film. Knowing that there are stories out there just waiting to be rediscovered makes me eager to delve into every nook and cranny of the movie world. Once again, this was a movie that was recommended to me, and I've got to say that the recommendations I've received have been so fun and unexpectedly perfect. So thank you very much. And if you've got a film that you think I should cover, then don't forget to recommend that down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to leave a like as well as subscribe so that you don't miss out on the next video. And if you'd like to see the films that I've already covered, then check out one of the breakdown playlists. But yeah, you guys are all amazing, and I can't wait to watch the next one with you. Bye-bye.
I didn't do it! Okay. Everybody just calm down.
Count of 3, we're all gonna put down our guns.
I have crossbows.
Well,